You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, with the full team this week of Adrian, Clarke, and Mark O'Hare. Mark, we missed you last week, mostly because I might have given a little shout out to Luton, and I thought they were a good price or overpriced. Now, the market went with me. I think it was like 3.1, 3.2, 90-minute odds. They went into 2.7, 2.8. Anyway, I didn't get it wrong. The market got it wrong as well as me, is what I'm saying. But I know listeners and viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, either watching the live stream or back, will notice something a little bit different about yourself, Mark, if you'd like to tell the viewers and listeners.
Yeah, I got my hair done. Got it done last Friday. So have been sort of struggling with hair loss for a good 10 years or so. Well, even probably since my late teens, early 20s, when it started receding, then it started going on top as well, and I was very self-conscious about it. So yeah, looked into various ways of trying to fix things. I've tried all sorts of shampoos and all that sort of nonsense and come up short. So yeah, I was originally looking at getting a hair transplant, but they're not guaranteed to work, and for all various other reasons, looked at alternatives. So yeah, sort of hair replacement systems are now kind of in vogue, really, and yeah, got it done last Friday, so pretty pleased with the results. Not quite where I want it to be just yet, but baby steps. And yeah, it's been quite nice kind of having hair again, not even knowing how to style it or don't even know what to do with it, to be honest. It's just, yeah.
It's a better hairstyle than me and Dan's anyway, mate. So
yeah, putting us to shame for a start. No, fair play, Mark. Adrian, he's looking well.
Looks well, doesn't he? Yeah, it's taken years after.
But Mark, more importantly, we are very happy to have you back on the podcast for your tipping. And as I said, there is a reason I am in the host chair, unfortunately. If you are watching on the YouTube, as I just mentioned there, hit that like button and do subscribe completely for free. It's the best way to get all our betting content to you. Timings are available for each match in the description. Check them out below, insights.matchbook.com. for a full recap of all the bets, and do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Not only have we got all those main markets, but now we do have the Bet Builder markets, which gives us lots of other options for the guys as well when they're tipping. So look, it's just games get bigger and bigger in the Premier League. 4 games we're going to cover today: West Ham versus Liverpool, Villa versus Chelsea, Spurs versus Arsenal, and Nottingham Forest versus Manchester City. We'll have an EFL section, European section, long shots, and bets. Let's go to the early kickoff. Another 12:30 kickoff for Liverpool after a Wednesday night game. Sort of slipped in because it wasn't a Champions League game. West Ham 5.9 underdogs to Liverpool. We're still 157 favourites here. The draw is available at 4.9. Both teams to score, yes. 157 is the odds there. The Asian handicap line sees West Ham get a 1-goal head start at over even money 2.06. The goal line here 3.5. 185 is the under. Adrian, look, Goodison Park last night was brilliant occasion. Liverpool still created enough chances to win it, not dissimilar to the Palace game, but they did look a bit off it, and there's something just missing at the moment as Klopp's reign comes to an end.
Yeah, it's just it's been a wild ride for the team. Yeah, I've consistently said I didn't think they'd win the league because of that, because they give up too many chances. There's teams are able to create decent opportunities against Liverpool, and Everton took their opportunities in that game, defended with amazing courage. You know, they were put under a lot of pressure, and Liverpool's forwards were just a little bit off it, weren't they? But on another day, they probably win that game quite comfortably. You know, Jordan Pickford made some great saves. So yeah, it's I don't think, you know, Liverpool have become a bad side just because they lost the Merseyside derby. They're still terrific. And no matter what happens, whether they're out of the title race or not, they can be proud of their efforts this season. I think they've sort of punched a little bit above their average in terms of the players that they have at their disposal. So, yeah, I in regards to this game, I fancy them first and foremost because they are creating a lot of opportunities, and I don't see them losing, you know, to Palace, to Everton, and then to West Ham. I think they'll have enough to bounce back and to react. There'll be a little bit of fire in their bellies. I'm pretty sure of that. They don't have a great away record, actually, away to the best teams in the league. Away to the top 9, they've won once this season, which is surprising. And only 4 away clean sheets all season. Both teams to score has landed in 71% of their away games. So I'm looking at Liverpool and both teams to score here. 71% is a good number in terms of their record across the campaign on the road. West Ham, for what it's worth, 68% of their home games have seen both teams to score land. Only 4 clean sheets at the London Stadium for them as well. They're not defending well, West Ham. They're giving up a lot of chances themselves. It's a funny situation for them. I think Europe's probably beyond them now. I think they've left themselves a little bit too much to do. You've got Antonio who's playing well. I think Bowen might come back for the game. So you've got goal threats there, which I would back them to score, because Liverpool aren't exactly impregnable at the moment, especially away from home. So I'd back West Ham to score, but I just think Liverpool are going to create a lot of chances against this West Ham team that might have a little bit of heart taken out of them by the fact that, that the European bid has floundered. You've also got the issue over David Moyes. David Ornstein, guy I respect massively, has sort of gone on record as saying that West Ham are talking to Ruben Amorim. I believe that will be true if he's saying that. So, how's that leave Moyes? How's that leave his position within that dressing room? It kind of undermines it a little bit. It feels like maybe it's coming to the end of the road there. So, and that mauling at Palace was a bit concerning, I think. So, yeah, when you add it all together, I can absolutely see both teams scoring, but really, I see Liverpool winning this 2-1, 3-1, or 4-1.
Okay, yeah, Liverpool both teams to score 2.3. Mark, I didn't catch the Merseyside derby live, so I was out and about, and then live with Manchester United fans, so respectively watched United versus Sheffield United the second half. But the what I saw on Twitter and Liverpool's performance, when I watched the highlights of the clear-cut chances they still created, it says to me that, look, on another day they probably would have won that game.
Possibly. They didn't look quite themselves, though, for at least the first half hour. And I think game state would have dictated for Everton, but Liverpool would have created chances, having to chase the game after Everton took the lead. But Everton absolutely bossed the first half hour. That's unquestionable, really. And I think when you look to the non-negotiables, Everton had them in droves, really, and Liverpool were lacking in certain parts of that. It's not often you see Konate so sort of jittery when put under pressure, physical pressure from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for example. And I think it was quite telling that post-match, Virgil van Dijk kind of called out his teammates and sort of questioned their desire to go and win the title based on that performance. But it was quite surprising, really, considering it was a derby at Goodison, to not see Liverpool kind of lift their game, really, especially after what I thought was a reasonable display away at Fulham, just when they were starting to be questioned after some recent poor performances. So kind of to slip back into that sloppiness was a concern. But the schedule's been really, really tough for Liverpool, as most of the top teams in the Premier League, because they've been fighting on all sorts of fronts, really. So you can kind of forgive them. And that is the negative coming into this weekend, is the tight turnaround again, a Wednesday derby away, an early start on Saturday at West Ham. That is a negative, as was the performance against Everton in midweek. But I've fallen down on the same area as Adrian, really. I'm still relatively confident in Liverpool winning this football match, because West Ham, I know the game against Palace came hot on the heels of that Leverkusen match, but they looked absolutely goosed, and quite worrying so after conceding the first goal. It's almost like they waved the white flag at Selhurst Park and were kind of happy to just, accept defeat, really. And we talk about the schedule being tough for Liverpool. Well, West Ham have had it quite tough too, and David Moyes is not a big rotator of his team. So a lot of those players, you think back to last season, went the distance in Europe. This season, they've gone pretty deep into Europe again. There's not been a huge amount of rotation, so perhaps they're feeling a bit fatigued, a bit leggy, lethargic, and it was calamitous at Palace, really. And sure, they've had a full week to kind of go over that and try and improve standards, and you should get a response at the London Stadium. But I don't think Liverpool are out of the title race yet. Many people have already sort of written their obituary, and I think it's still far too early. Arsenal having to go to Spurs this weekend. City have got 4 away games in their final 6, so there's still opportunity for these two teams to drop points. And I think Liverpool surely have to go into this game knowing it still must win. In terms of the situation, that's not changed before or after Everton. They still have to go to West Ham and win if they want to have an opportunity of winning the title. And I completely agree with Adrian. I think the conversations West Ham are having with Ruben Amorim just adds to the uncertainty. Looks like David Moyes will be leaving. Players might see this as an opportunity to sort of get an early break and breather, really. So, don't trust Liverpool keeping clean sheets against anyone, anywhere right now. So quite happy to kind of include both teams to score to bolster that price up. So we've got Liverpool to win here at 157. BTTS is also 157. So the market is already saying they're heavily fancying Liverpool to win the game and both teams to score. And, just to kind of combine the two and get what is now a 2.74 price, that's an enormous leap when the market is telling you or screaming at you that Liverpool win this game and both sides score in this game. So why not, instead of sort of taking the two as standalone short price singles, combine the two and get a really juicy price and something nice to cheer on for the early kickoff. So, 8 of West Ham's 10 matches against the top 6 have seen both teams to score land. Exclude the bottom 4, and 11 of Liverpool's 13 away days in the Premier League have seen both teams to score land. So quite happy to back the away win alongside the BTTS angle.
Okay, currently priced at 2.3, as the guy said. The only thing put me off that bet, as Mark mentioned, the early kickoff. But look, I'll look past that, considering the need for Liverpool to go and try and win the title. 36.0, the price on Matchbook Betting Exchange. Mark, you did want to have a little flutter on Liverpool to win the league, and like you said, there may be a few twists and turns just based on the fixture lists for Arsenal and Manchester City. 8 o'clock Saturday, Aston Villa versus Chelsea, another TV game we're going to cover here. Let's take a look at the betting that we have on the Match with Betting Exchange. Villa 2.28 favourites at home to Chelsea, are 3.15. The draw is available at 3.95. Both teams to score, yes, 1.47. Another short price there. Definitely makes the top 10 this year, I would say. The Asian handicap line sees Chelsea get a quarter goal head start at 1.97. And the goal line here, 3.5, unders 1.79. Adrian, we'll go to you first, just because you have an interesting angle on this. Chelsea without Cole Palmer weren't good, and with Gusto as well to a lesser extent. I'm guessing he'll be back for this game between the two sides.
Yeah, Arsenal lucked out, didn't they, with the team sheets coming in and Cole Palmer being unwell. So that definitely was a factor. But Arsenal would still have smashed Chelsea the other night. Got no doubt about that. Chelsea couldn't live with Arsenal's high tempo drive and football and the runners. They're a lazy team. They're full of individuals that don't really want to graft. Not for each other, not yet anyway. They're a team of individuals, and Cole Palmer wouldn't have saved them at Emirates, and he might not save them in this game either. Even though he's a brilliant player and he's having an unbelievable season. Having watched that with my own eyes inside the ground the other night, there's no chance I'm backing Chelsea here against Aston Villa, who are going to be highly motivated, of course, underneath the lights. On a Saturday night, I expect a big atmosphere. This is a huge game for Aston Villa. They build up that advantage ahead of Spurs before the North London derby. Big old advantage. That could be, almost terminal for Spurs, who've got such a tough run in. So, this is a huge game for Villa. I've got an interesting angle. I could have stuck this in long shots, but I'm going to flag it here. I'm going to go with, on the half-time, full-time market, I'm going to go with draw Villa. Okay, so my reasoning here is Chelsea-based. I can't believe this stat, but it's true. And it was before the other night, Chelsea had only been behind in 3 of 31 half-times this season. At half-time, they'd only been behind 3 times in 31 games. It was 4 now, so it's 4 in 32. But even so, they could easily have been level. They did have chances in that first half. They, as kind of, I don't know, as bad as they are a team that actually start games quite well, and they don't often start poorly and have to play catch up. It's in the second halves that they're really, really bad, and we saw that the other night. And the stat on their second halves is that they've lost 16 second halves in isolation out of 32. They are the 17th best team in the second half in the Premier League. So I just thought that was an interesting enough stat to hang a little long shot on in terms of this game, because I think you'd have to fancy Aston Villa. In terms of my sort of more boring selection, I'd just go for Villa on the nose. At 2.32, I think that's decent. They've got good pace, they've got good energy about them, real running power. Those wide players flying down the flanks. I think Chelsea's fullbacks will struggle again. Are they going to get protected by their wingers? I doubt it. So some of Villa's best players are the ones that play in those wide areas. So Yeah, for me, Chelsea can hurt Villa. Obviously, they got that speed themselves, but I don't know. With this pace of Carlos at the back and Pau Torres, they're better equipped than most to maybe handle what Chelsea have got to throw at them. So yeah, I do fancy Villa here. So Villa on the nose, but also little cheeky one, draw Villa on the half-time, full-time market.
Okay, small bit of money for Villa, 228 now on the Match for Betting Exchange, but that's a fun one for Adrian. Draw at halftime, Villa, full-time 6.2. And Mark, you're in agreement here.
Yeah, so I gave Chelsea a small shot of being competitive on Tuesday night. That was really until the team news came out and Gusto and Palmer were missing, really. I just felt Chelsea at times this season have probably been at their best when they've been allowed to break and play on into space rather than sort of against a low block opposition. And you think of the reverse game against Arsenal, the 3 games against Man City this season as well. They've kind of stepped up for the most part. There's been a few no-shows. You think of Newcastle, Liverpool away. But in the main, I've kind of fancied them more in the big matches that matter, really, rather than against the bottom half dross. And I think in the first half, Arsenal clearly bossed it midweek, but Chelsea was still a threat. Weren't completely out of the game at all, despite the early goal. But the way in which they disintegrated in that second half was pretty shocking, really. And Pochettino quite right to stick the boot in, called his players soft, basically called them out for giving up in the second half. And that's a huge concern if that's the kind of attitude which we're seeing in this Chelsea squad right now, just perhaps when you're starting to see incremental signs of progress through their season. But yeah, I worry for them. Palmer due back this weekend, I think, but Gusto will be out, and I think he is a big blow. He's been a revelation really down that right-hand side in terms of his delivery. But yeah, I'm happy to oppose them here. They've already lost 7 of 9 trips to the top 11. Their only win in that sequence was that crazy game at Spurs earlier in the season. They've conceded 22 goals in those 9 games. They've kept 2 clean sheets in the Premier League since mid-December. They've shipped multiple goals now in 6 of the last 7. Burnley, Sheffield United both have done so against Chelsea. So, you know, I fancy Villa to do something similar. So going forward, I've got no major qualms with Chelsea bar the erratic finishing at times, but defensively, they're just so difficult to trust. And I just think Unai Emery will outsmart them here. And that tends to be what he does. And I think that high line might bamboozle Chelsea a bit, particularly someone like Nicholas Jackson, who's often caught offside anyhow. So, yeah, I put the boot into Villa a few times in the last couple of months. I felt they'd kind of regressed a little bit, but credit to them. They seem to have found a second wind. That Arsenal performance was eye-catching. The win last week against Bournemouth was very impressive too, especially coming straight off the bat of that Conference League game with Lille, which went the distance as well. But they look strong, and they look like they came on stronger in the second half against Bournemouth. Now they get Douglas Luiz back from suspension too, so the midfield will be more solid. Defensively, we know what they're capable of doing, and going forward, there's a lot to like about Villa. So the reason, though, I've really kind of gone with Villa, as well as the eye test and the obvious, what we've seen so far this season, points on the board, wins, Villa Park record, it's just the price, really. The market is saying that these two teams are rated about the same level or equal, really. If this was game played at neutral venue, Wembley, for example, these two would be an each of 2 in the betting, and I think that's very unfair on Villa based on what we've seen so far this season. The market is being driven by the underlying data, which we know Chelsea have been strong at all season, but it's not translated into consistent results and a reliable betting proposition, especially away from Stamford Bridge. So, yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who believes Villa and Chelsea are of equal quality right now, and I think the 2.3 or around that mark is just too big. It's actually a little bit disrespectful for a side who've won 12 of 17 home games, are on course to finish in the top 4 and average 2.5 goals per game as hosts. So happy to be on the home side.
Yeah, find it again hard to disagree with anything said there. Villa 228 will lock that in as the official play. Adrian with a fun selection, draw half-time, Villa full-time, 6.2 currently. Let's move on to the North London Derby, which is Sunday, 2 o'clock. Moved a little bit forward, I think, because the police time is why it's not in the 4:30 slot. Spurs 4.2, Arsenal odds on 187, the draw 4.1. Both teams to score, yes, 152 with no available at 2.7. Spurs are getting a 3/4 goal start on the Asian handicap line, and the goal line for this one is currently set at 3.5. Once again, unders the favourite at 171. So, Mark, we disagreements on this game. So it's just everyone was a bit too nice their first couple of games. Disagreement in the North London Derby. You said you were going to be against Arsenal against Chelsea, or you were. So make the case here. I guess to start with, Goodison Park last night is a stark reminder of how these derbies can go.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, so Monday I was looking at potentially backing Chelsea with a goal and a quarter start at the Emirates, but quickly kind of ran away from that when the team news emerged. But it's been a big week for Arsenal, a very big week. This week looked like the most obvious week where if they are going to have their title prospects scuppered at some point, it's probably going to be this week, having to host Chelsea and then go away to Spurs. I know you've still got the trip to Manchester United as well, but this felt like the most likely time. But Arsenal passed with flying colours against Chelsea. Clearly, their opponents helped them along the way in that particular game, but started brilliantly with the goal from Trossard. They looked highly motivated, played with real intent from the off. And, they racked up an even better goal difference now. So if the title does come down to those fine margins, Arsenal do have the points on the board. They do have the goal difference in their favour. It is advantage Arsenal right now. But, yeah, I mean, it's hard to find any sort of negatives in Arsenal. And I'm being honest there. We've rightfully eulogised about them, not just this season, but for the most part last year too. They're much further down the development process under Mikel Arteta than I expected them to be at this stage. And, as I say, it's difficult to pick holes in them. Defensively, they've been exceptional at times. Perhaps they could be a little bit more clinical in forward areas in certain games, but we're nitpicking a little bit, really. But this all comes down to price for me. And I don't think I don't want to be with Arsenal at odds on quotes in a big derby game away against Tottenham, a highly motivated Spurs side. Let's not forget either. So, I'll get to Spurs shortly, but I just feel they feel a bit short odds on. So City haven't been yet to Spurs in the Premier League under Postecoglou. They were here in the FA Cup, but Liverpool were back in September. They went off at 2.3. It was September, so a lot has changed since then. But I went through the archives. The last time Arsenal were odds-on favourites at Tottenham was November 2004, so 20 years ago. They won that game 5-4, but that was a season that Spurs finished 9th. Arsenal were runners-up. And I looked at the team sheets that day. Spurs 11 featured the likes of Michael Brown, Eric Edmond, Nuruddin Naibet, Noé Pamaro. You look at the Arsenal side that played that day. Lehmann, Lauren, Toure, Sagan, Cole, Ljungberg, Vieira, Fabregas, Reyes, Bergkamp, Henry, with Van Persie and Pires off the bench. That's a huge disparity, and I don't see the same level of disparity between the two teams going into this weekend, and therefore it just feels slightly short. Look, Spurs are likely to be without both full-backs, which is a big blow for them going forward. But outside of that, I think they're close to full strength. Their performance levels have dipped significantly since the winter. There's been an argument that Postecoglou has been found out a little bit. But I don't think you can overstate the motivational factor here, not just for top four, but you're playing at home against your biggest rivals, trying to disrupt their own title challenge too. They're going to raise a level or two, and they're well rested as well. They've not played for a fortnight. Arsenal have played 9 games in 29 days. And I think we saw in that second half against Aston Villa in particular, there is an element of fatigue about this Arsenal side if they don't get their own way early on. And I think Spurs have been quite good against elite opposition this season, actually. You look at their record against the top 7, 4 wins, 3 draws, just the 2 defeats. Held Arsenal away, held City away, smashed up Villa away, beat Liverpool here, albeit controversially. So I just think maybe stylistically Spurs can be at their best when they're given a bit more freedom to play rather than attempting to break down a low block. And for all Arsenal's defensive solidity, they have to win this game if they want to win the title. And Arsenal can't really afford to kind of go down to Tottenham. I don't think they will, but just try and shut up shop and play out for a point. It's just not really the Arsenal way, especially when you're in a title challenge. So, yeah, I've seen Arsenal's price has contracted quite significantly since Tuesday night against Chelsea, which I was surprised actually, because surely everyone saw the big drift on Chelsea after the Palmer Gusto news. So what have we really learned about Arsenal? Well, nothing, I don't think, from Tuesday night. We know everything we know about Arsenal. So why the big massive contraction in price based on that performance? It feels a bit off to me. So for that reason, I'm going to back Spurs of a half-goal start. I said at the beginning of the show, I do expect a couple of twists and turns in the title race still. This might be the time for Arsenal to drop points, who knows? But I'm happy to back Spurs with a half-goal start. Be much more comfortable doing that than backing Arsenal at odds on.
Okay, 2.1. Tottenham effectively double chance. Adrian, I'll let you go second here so you can get the floor. But 2 things I'll add to the Spurs case, I guess. Firstly was Tottenham caused Arsenal a lot of problems in that Emirates fixture all the way back in September. And secondly, I guess if you're trying to beat this Arsenal team at the moment, it's probably the Villa template in that you try and hang in there for maybe a half, and then take your chances in the second half when the game sort of gets a bit less tactical.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, they're not dissimilar to Villa, are they, in terms of their style? And yeah, Villa did cause Arsenal big problems on the counter attack. So yeah, if Tottenham are still in the game later on, or Arsenal having to push for a goal, Tottenham could potentially pick off Arsenal. I could see that scenario maybe happening. But yeah, I'll oppose what Mark was saying quite happily. I think that this Arsenal team is the real deal, first and foremost, significantly stronger than Tottenham. I've worked on quite a lot of Spurs games this season, and their form has dipped massively. That performance in Newcastle was shocking. It was almost as bad as Chelsea at Emirates. I felt like they turned it in a little bit as well, Tottenham, which was a concern. Udogie and Pedro Porro are massive players for Spurs. There's no doubt about that. Emerson Royale and Ben Davis, if they're the ones that come in, they can't. They're not at the same level, and they don't help the team stylistically in the same way. The central midfield has been bang average for months. He took both central midfielders off very early at St James's Park. Bissouma and Bentancur put on Højbjerg and Sarr, and they weren't any better. So I think that's a problem area for Spurs in terms of form, and it's not a problem area for Arsenal in terms of form. Let me tell you, Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard are on top of their game at the moment. They're flying, and Thomas Partey's return in midweek, I think, was massive. He played ever so well. I think that unit it has potential to boss the engine room. I just cast my mind back to last year as well. Look, Spurs would talk about the hostility and how much this means to Tottenham, and it does. And they would love to deny Arsenal the title, and they might, but because they're not a bad team at all. But forget the noise. I mean, Spurs fans won't win this game for Tottenham. It'll be the players, and yeah, I just think the form of the two teams is miles apart. Arsenal went there last year and controlled it in the way that they've controlled recent away games, quietened the crowd, kept the ball, been quite patient, and then picked teams off, and that's how they do it again. Obviously, since that they lost to Fulham in that sort of one really bad performance of the campaign, they've been brilliant away from home. I think six away clean sheets on the spin. They've been far more solid actually on the road than they have been at Emirates Stadium. The high line for me, Havertz has one of the best in terms of movement. Havertz is right up there in the league in terms of the quality of his movement, and no one's made more through balls this season than Martin Odegaard. And then of course you've got Saka and Trossard or Martinelli to maybe run in beyond as well. So for me, Arsenal worthy favourites here. Maybe Everton winning against Liverpool might be a little bit of a nice, timely reminder for Arsenal as well that they can't take anything for granted. Might just sharpen their senses a little bit actually coming into the game. So yeah, every part of me wants to be cautious here and say, oh yeah, I don't want to tempt fate, and I'm going to play down Arsenal's prospects, but Arsenal are a lot better than Tottenham, and they should win the game.
Okay, so pairing it with under 4.5 goals for Adrian.
Yeah. So yeah, on the under 4.5. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a particularly expansive game. I think Arsenal will be measured in the way they go about it and look to pick off Spurs. It's not in Arsenal's interest to make this an end-to-end game because that's where Tottenham are dangerous. If you give Son and Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson space to run at you, then they can hurt any team, including Arsenal. So I think it'll be, I don't expect Arsenal to be gung-ho going there. So I think they'll be looking to win to 0 or to max give 1 goal away here. So that's why I've gone with the under 4.5. And it's a much more palatable price as well.
187 upgraded to 2.3 with the under 4.5 goals. And full disclosure, I probably was 101 to go with Adrian's selection. But I also think he made a good case there, and we'll be picking Arsenal and under 4.5 goals at 2.3 on the podcast selection. Not even 1% of me will be cheering on anything other than an Arsenal win. Moving on, hopefully we can get a Forest angle on side, but I doubt it. Nottingham Forest versus Manchester City. Forest are 9.0, City 1.38. The draw is 5.9. Both teams to score. Yes, 185, like the good old days. No, 2.04. The Asian handicap line, Forest getting a 1.5 goal head start at 184. The total here is 3.5 unders, though 161. So yeah, Mark, we'll leave all the sideshows aside and just focus on the game here. We're recording this before City away to Brighton, but we'll assume City win the game, and obviously we won't know the North London scoreline. Can Forest cause any issues to this Man City team?
Yeah, of course they can. I don't see them winning the game. Obviously, I'd be pro City coming into this, but there are reasons to be hopeful, I guess, from a Forest perspective and even an Arsenal perspective, because for the same reasons we talked about with Arsenal and even Liverpool, the schedule has been very tough for Man City. They've been playing across all competitions, playing Thursday night and then going again on Sunday, both away trips as well. It'd be wrong to assume that they'll be in tip-top condition coming into this game. Team news might be better. Haaland might be back fit and available, which might give them a boost. But, did fail to win at the City Ground last season. They did dominate that game, but still failed to win that match. And I still would expect them to find a way. Their record, before the Brighton game is 21 wins from 25 Premier League games against teams in 6th and below. Just remarkable consistency. 10 wins from 12 on their travels against that standard of opposition. They've actually scored at least 3 goals in 8 of those fixtures too. So keeping them at bay is going to be the difficult task for Forest, and it's been Forest's Achilles heel all season, really, whether it's through the defensive set pieces, the lack of concentration or cohesion in the back line. They just look vulnerable. They look fragile at the back. Just 1 clean sheet since the start of November. Only 2 shutouts at the City Ground all season. So I think it's easy to be pro City in this game because of that defence. But I think there's opportunity for Forest to get on the score sheet and make a game of this for a couple of reasons, really. But firstly, I don't have faith in City keeping clean sheets against any team at any venue right now. But also, out of all the bottom half teams, you would have to say Forest would be amongst the best in terms of the attacking artillery at their disposal. Chris Wood has been a little bit profligate in the last couple of games, but Gio Reyna's making an impact. Hudson-Odoi's playing well. Gibbs White's there. You've got Alanga. I think Iwani's back in training this week too. So they are stacked in forward areas of players who can make a difference. Stacked more so than most bottom half teams are. And they've got a knack of scoring at the City Ground too. They've scored in 14 of 17 at home this season. They've only failed to score 5 times in 36 home Premier League games since promotion as well. And the City numbers, I mean, I know them, but they still surprise me every time I sort of recount them. Their clean sheet record away from home, 3 in the Premier League this season. Across all comps, 4 clean sheets in 23 away days. That is remarkably poor for a team who we often describe as the best team on the planet. And it means that 12 of their 16 away games this season have seen City win alongside both teams to score. So again, kind of doing similar to what I did at Liverpool. But if you look at the City win price, they're trading at, what is it, 136, 137. BTTS is 185, so it's a bit bigger. But the combination of the two comes in at, what is it now, 294. I mean, that's a big price for something. If you look at this, as I say, those City wins away from home, 16 all season, 12 have seen this land. 294, that's a massive increase on the 138. So, that's what I'm going to go for here. I think Forest can cause them problems, but ultimately will fall short.
Okay, yeah, seems a big price. Adrian, you're expecting City to be a bit more comfortable than Mark suggested.
Yeah, look, you might as well just pick Mark's now because I know that price is it's just winking at you, Dan. There's no chance.
Not gonna lie.
No matter what I say here, you're going to go with that. I know you are.
2-1 for City to win. 2-1 for City to win and Forest to score. Yes, sign me up, please.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good shout. If you're less confident in Forest scoring, the best way in is to back Man City minus 1.5 goals, because I think they'll score at least 2. I'll be staggered if they don't. This is a Man City team that across their last 3 Premier League games, pre-Brighton, because we don't know what they did there, scored 5, 4, and 4. They've won by 2 goals at Burnley, at Brentford, at Everton, at Palace, at West Ham, at Manchester United. Forest defence, as Mark outlined, is not good. And I don't think the goalie is particularly good either. Might be slightly better than Matt Turner, but I don't think he's the answer either. Sells. So I just see City being very, very determined to close up the goal difference, to be super professional, super efficient, even though they might be fatigued, and that is a good point. I just think they've got too much class not to win with something to spare at the City ground. This isn't a game that's going to keep Forest up, in my opinion. Yeah, they do have good players going forward, and maybe stylistically, they're the sort, because they've got pace and they can run with the ball, that might actually be able to hurt them. But just don't think they're going to have very much of the ball. I would have preferred Cooper's Forest against City here at home to Nuno's. Nuno's Forest are for me just not good enough without the ball. And for that reason, I just see City scoring 2, 3 or 4 goals here. So that's why I think Man City -1.5 is a decent pick. It is odds on. It's 1.93, so nowhere near the value you get from Mark's pick. But yeah, it's one to go with if you don't think Forest will score.
Safer option City -1.5, but we will lock in Man City to win and both teams to score, yes, along with Arsenal under 4.5 goals, along with Aston Villa and along with Liverpool and both teams to score, yes. But insights.matchbook.com will recap all the guys' selections, not just the podcast selections. Let's move on to EFL time. Mark, it's been, I have to say, we keep repeating this, but all 3 of the leagues have been amazing, and the Championship as well. You're dipping into it here this week with Norwich.
Yeah, it's the penultimate weekend in the Championship regular season. And here we have a very highly motivated Norwich City team hosting a Swansea side in mid-table, no man's land, really. You could say they're possibly, I'm not going to say they're on the beach, but they're nowhere near as motivated, shall we say, as Norwich going into this game. So Norwich are desperate to hold on to their position in the top 6. Hull's win at Coventry on Wednesday night means they can still catch the Canaries if they keep picking up positive results. But Norwich are very strong operators at Carrow Road. Exclude the top 2, and they've won 15 of 20 home league games this season. That includes 10 wins in 15 at home to the bottom half, of which Swansea are in. The Swans are in good form, in fairness. They're starting to find their groove. 3 successive wins, including a stuffing of Huddersfield away from home last weekend. However, all 3 wins were against relegation battlers, and they have struggled when stepping up in class, especially away from home. But 9 defeats in 11 trips to the top half, and Swansea have conceded the 2nd highest expected goals figure away from home in the Championship this season, after Rotherham United. So quite happy to be pro Norwich. They're around 172 to win this game, but we can bolster the odds up to close to 1.9 by just including over 1.5 goals, eliminating the 1-0 correct score. 80% of Norwich and 80% of Swansea matches have featured at least 2 goals this season. Both have been involved in relatively decent games throughout the campaign for goals. So I'm quite happy to back Norwich to score at least twice and win the game.
Okay, Norwich and over 1.5 goals, 186. And Mark is a regular EFL bettor, but it just gets overshadowed every week in the podcast with Adrian Clarke being our EFL man. So Adrian, no pressure on you here. League One obviously.
I know nothing about European football, you see. So
look, it was a balancing act. It was a balancing act. But Mark does like getting involved in the EFL. But look, the title's still on the line in League One for Derby County, and obviously they do need the point to ensure promotion.
Yeah, not the title. Portsmouth have got the title, but promotion. Yeah, so they're basically 2nd place with 1 game to go, with the superior goal difference to Bolton. So they need to just. I'm not sure about the goal difference, but they need a point basically to guarantee promotion. It's looking very, very likely.
And Bolton have the goal difference. So
yeah, exactly. So they just need a point. And they're at home to the bottom club, Carlisle United, on the final day. Couldn't have picked a better fixture. Long relegated Carlisle. And Carlisle have the worst away record in the division. They've lost 15 of 22 matches. Derby are very, very solid, just incredibly solid. Since the start of February, 10 clean sheets in 16 League One matches for Derby County. That's phenomenal. They've gone 3 games without conceding in the run-up to this one. 5 clean sheets in the last 8. They are functioning superbly. They're not really giving teams a sniff. And at home over the course of this season, 22 games, only 18 goals conceded on their own patch. So yeah, look, I backed Derby to win to 0 at Cambridge last time out. They obliged, which was very kind of them. And I just think with a full house there, big expectations, knowing all you got to do is just, they only need a point, but to win the game, win it nicely. Do not give Carlisle a sniff. That's how I see it playing out, because they're good enough to do it. So yeah, Derby are a really, really short price for obvious reasons. It would be a terrible upset if they were to get beaten Bolton 1. So yeah, you got to fancy them to win. If you pair it with win to 0 or BTTS no, it's I think it's around 1.87. So it's still short, but this is it's the second place side against the already relegated 24th place side. They should absolutely win this game.
Yeah, it seems a no-brainer there. Derby, both teams score now 187. The second selection comes with Cambridge away to Port Vale. So this is a big price considering what's at stake for both teams, and Port Vale already down.
Yeah, obviously I've gone quite short there. I wanted to give something that was a little bit more value. So just to balance things out, and this is price-led. Cambridge United 3.05 to win at Port Vale on the final day. Cambridge need a point to survive, but they'd love a win. They'd love to get in front early doors and just make sure it's a drama-free final day of the season for them. They were robbed in midweek. They were beating Wycombe, who are playing really, really well at the moment. Wycombe, they were 1-0 up into injury time, and they get this diabolical penalty decision goes against them, and they draw the game, which means that it goes to this weekend. And I think they'll use that as fuel. Gary Monk will definitely use that to try and fire the team up. Cambridge have been really solid lately. They've conceded 6 goals in their last 7 matches. Never conceded more than 1 goal in that run as well. And look, they're up against a team that they've got an awful home record of late. Since Boxing Day, at home, Port Vale have won 2, drawn 3, and lost 8. They're already down, so they're feeling pretty sore. Probably half the team are thinking, well, I'm going to get released on Monday morning. It's are their hearts really in this? They've scored 7 goals in their last 12 games. And across the last 12 games in the form table, Port Vale are the worst team in the division. So for me, a highly motivated Cambridge United, who are solid, can go there and win the game. And I think it's a great price, 3.05.
Okay, let's lock it in. 3.05 Cambridge to win on the final day against Port Vale. Mark, we'll move on to our long shot section here. Serie A for their next couple of picks. This one surprised me a little bit just looking at the table, but I guess there's a bit of value, so I want you to make the case.
Yeah, it's more circumstantial than stat-based or data-driven. Sunday night, Fiorentina host Sassuolo. Sassuolo are 2 points adrift of safety with 5 games to play. They're in desperate need of a win. They've only won 3 times since September. One of those wins was actually against Fiorentina, but that's not the reason for backing them this weekend. I'm going to back them at 5.0 away at Fiorentina, largely down to Fiorentina and their focus, really, because they are 5 points shy of European qualification, but they are prioritising the cup at the minute. And this match is sandwiched between 2 big semi-final showdowns. So on Wednesday night, Fiorentina went away to Atalanta for the second leg of their Coppa Italia semi-final. They were beaten in it and eliminated at the semi-final stage, which was a great disappointment. They'd reached the Coppa Italia final last season, failed to do so this time around. But this Thursday coming, they will be playing Club Brugge in the first leg of their Conference League semi-final as well. And the head coach, Vincenzo Italiano, has shown he's capable of resting and rotating his troops in league matches before and after these big European ties. So I very much expect something similar on Sunday night, especially coming between the 2 semi-final showdowns, domestic cup and European cup too. So, basically, I would be very surprised if Fiorentina go full strength, go all out to win this game on Sunday night, considering where they are in their campaign. And they haven't exactly been formidable anyhow this calendar year. Just 3 league wins in 14 for Fiorentina right now. So they're not in the best of form domestically. So I do expect this price Fiorentina's price to drift between now and Sunday. So there's an opportunity to get Sassuolo onside at a nice price, 5.0. It's a massive match for them, not so much for Fiorentina. And despite their lack of wins since September, Sassuolo have shown up in some matches and given some big teams some big problems. So if they bring the noise, they are definitely capable of getting a result in this game.
Yeah, that's best case of the day for me, Mark. Really enjoyed that. So that's, let's see what that goes off. We're hoping we'll head towards 0 mark. 5.0 currently at the time of recording, but maybe be quick if the market catches up on some of that team rotation heading into Sunday night. Adrian, follow that, and I know what you've done here, Adrian. I think you are basically Oxford go into this game needing a result for the playoffs against an Exeter team with seemingly nothing to play for, and you've said the market's gone too much on the motivation side of things, and 5.2 is too good.
Yeah, you've read me like a book, mate. You know me too well. But look, we've made the case, haven't we, for how motivation matters and how if a game, really means something for a team like a Derby, like a Sassuolo, and the others, and Cambridge United, that's a reason to get on side. But it doesn't always work like that, and some teams choke on the big day when they're under pressure. And sometimes a team that's freewheeling can really upset the odds. The thing is, I'm going to oppose Oxford in the League One promotion race. They're just behind Lincoln in the race for the playoffs. Lincoln are in pole position. They entertained the champions, Pompey, on the final day, who have basically probably been partying for a fortnight. So who knows what sort of Pompey will show up there. But Lincoln have a chance to get the job done. And if news filters through, it could break Oxford hearts. But the reason I'm going with Oxford is really form. They're unbeaten in 9 games, Exeter City. They're on a great run. Absolutely brilliant. They've won 6 of their last 8 games. They're up to 12th in the table. They've scored in 11 successive League One matches of Exeter City, who were down at the bottom earlier on in the season, but they've flown up the table. And they've risen their game as well at home when they've entertained the top sides this season. In 9 home games against the top 10, they've conceded 8 goals, which I think is massively impressive. And 3 of those were in one match against Derby. So, they like this. It's quite a tight ground there. Good atmosphere at St James's Park. They would love to kind of make it a miserable day for Oxford. And I've seen Oxford lately. And they've had a bit of a wobble. They had a brilliant run, an unbelievable run. And then I watched them against Lincoln, and they didn't really show up. And then they were flat against Stevenage, dropped points there, and they've lost the initiative. And for me, it's going to take a lot to regain that initiative here. But I've watched their last 2 games, and it feels like when the pressure's been on, they've tightened up, and that's a problem. So I just think the price is huge on an away team, a home team rather, Exeter City, with a great record against the big boys in pretty much one of the form sides in the division. For them to be priced up at 5.2 feels kind of crazy. So that's why I've gone with it.
Okay, Exeter, 2 really good long shot cases, and it's a case of figuring out yourself on the card, motivation versus team freewheeling, as Adrian touched on, and where the price lands and where you think the price should be. So I feel there'll be a few betting opportunities throughout cards across England and Europe. Let's move on to best bets, Mark. And Bologna, who have been absolutely sensational. Their coach is getting rave reviews throughout Europe. Maybe just a little bit summary of them again for those that haven't listened and got on board on the Bologna bus that you've been trying to push and I've been trying to pronounce throughout the season, and make the case.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few standout stories across European football this season. Bayer Leverkusen, the obvious one, but kind of under the radar, you've got Stuttgart in a top 4 position in the Bundesliga. Brest are in the top 3 race in Ligue 1. Aston Villa, of course, in the Premier League. And then in Italy, you've got Bologna, who nobody anticipated would be challenging at all for European qualification, let alone Champions League and a top 4 position. So the top 5 teams in Italy will get Champions League qualification this season. Bologna are in 4th, and they're in a very good position to finish in the top 5 after an absolutely outstanding victory away at Roma on Monday. They're big challengers, really, in 5th. They absolutely schooled them from start to finish, really. And they're in a fantastic position now. And Thiago Motta has achieved wonderful things. He was kind of scorned and sneered at the start of his managerial career. He made a few interesting but kind of flippant comments about tactics and formations, which got picked up on and laughed at, really. Kind of just took an idea and ran with it, which wasn't quite what he was trying to explain. So it's taken him time to sort of get the credit he deserves, really. But he's taken on this Bologna side and moved them, every single player, up a notch or three, really. They've been absolutely brilliant. And especially at home so far this season, where they've just been so rock solid. Exclude the top two, the two Milan clubs. They played 15 home league games, won 12 of those, conceded just 5 goals and racked up 11 clean sheets. They are super solid, but they also have a bit of panache in forward areas. Joshua Zirkzee in particular, he's been in fantastic form in forward areas. So I just think they're too smart, too savvy, too streetwise, too sexy at times too to beat a side like Udinese, who arrive on Sunday afternoon, battling for relegation just outside the drop zone on goal difference right now. But they've lost 3 of the last 4, including a really big 6-pointer against Verona at home last weekend. They've only scored 12 away goals all season. I think they'll be given the squeeze here by Bologna. So happy to be with the home side, but we've got to engineer something else to try and get a sort of more palatable price. So include under 4.5 goals, and we're getting close to 1.9 on the home team. Just one Bologna match all season has featured 5 goals or more. They tend to get the business done sort of 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 2-1-ish along the way. But obviously we get the 3-1 and 4-1 on side as well. So not the 4-1, I should say, the 3-1. But yeah, Bologna and under 4.5 goals.
Okay, best bet on the card for Mark, 1.9 at time of recording. Adrian, we've got a massive, the championship relegation battle has arguably been, well, I guess there's more teams involved, so maybe it has been more dramatic than the promotion race. But there's a certain type of drama associated with relegation battles, and you're suggesting Huddersfield, Birmingham, while a massive game, isn't going to be the most exciting.
I think it's a real tough watch. Definitely a tough watch for both sets of supporters. It's basically loser goes down in the championship when Huddersfield entertain Birmingham City. So it's a colossal game. Huddersfield absolutely need to win. Birmingham, I don't think, can afford not to win either. You've got Norwich on the final weekend, which is absolutely no gimme. Huddersfield have got Ipswich, by the way, on the final day away. That I don't think they're getting too much out of that. So it has to be a win. And both teams will be, I think, very scared of losing, very scared of conceding goals. As soon as I saw this fixture, you just think, right, well, this is 0-0 or it's 1-0 either way. You can see, 2-0 max, because, or a 1 apiece, of course, fits into the bill. So I'm going to go under 2.5. Huddersfield are on a poor run, 1 win in 10. Awful timing for them. And they've scored 1 goal or less in each of those 10 matches. So they've lost their mojo in front of goal. They don't really have that many prolific strikers anyway. They're great at set pieces, Huddersfield, but in open play, very, very limited. And Birmingham City under Gary Rowett will go there and be solid. You know that. They're going to be well organised, and they're going to play for a clean sheet win here, no doubt about it. They've blanked in 4 of their last 8, Birmingham, so they're not exactly flying up top. I think they've got some good attacking players, but they're not in great form. And they've scored 1 goal or 0 goals in 18 of 22 away matches this season. So chances are they're only getting 1 at the most. I just think whoever scores first, if someone scores first, it's going to be like a playoff final where they just sit on it and they protect it. They're going to batten down the hatches and say, right, we're not giving this up. So that's where I'm going with it. I don't know who's going to win. I'll probably side with Birmingham but Huddersfield and Birmingham screams low, and you can back it. It's not the shortest of prices, 1.83. Yes, it's odds on, but it feels likely to me that this is not going to escalate into a gung-ho game.
All right, lock it in. Best bet on the card for Adrian. Huddersfield versus Birmingham under 2.5 goals, 183. As we said at the start, if you are watching, hit that like button and subscribe completely for free to the show, and check out insights.matchbook.com for a full recap of all the guys' bets. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. Myself, Adrian, and Miguel will be back in situ on Champions League Monday, previewing the semi-finals, and myself, Mark, and Adrian will be back previewing what will be the 3rd last weekend of the Premier League season as the race hits up. But rest assured, there'll be plenty of content throughout the summer, including Euros preview. But now we will chat to you on Monday. Enjoy the weekend's football. Bye-bye.